You click on this video because of the title. Is Royal Court overpriced? Maybe a little bit. I'm gonna be honest. I think this is a conversation that has come up almost every Paradox game and almost every Paradox DLC. Paradox doesn't have the typical, DLC model. They have a lot of DLCs and their games run for a long time. However, I have to say with Crusader Kings 3 Royal Court, this is the most expensive we have. As of making this video, you can buy Crusader Kings 3 for $34, and then you can buy Royal Court for $30. That's almost buying the game twice. Like, you're almost buying the game twice for Royal Court. And does Royal Court give you that same amount of game? It doesn't. It doesn't. It's not even close. I think Royal Court is an okay to good DLC. I would say mid at the worst and good at the best. I don't think it's the best DLC ever made, and I don't think it's the worst DLC ever made. My biggest complaints with the DLC is it doesn't really help the super late game and it doesn't really help the super early game, which I think are the weakest point in Crusader Kings 3. And also, a lot of the stuff takes money, and I already think money management is not my favorite part of Paradox, and wish some of it would be not money management. To the pricing though, a lot of Paradox fans, real supporters, say there's no problem with the Paradox DLC method, but I disagree. I think having complaints with the Paradox DLC method is a valid complaint about the company. I think that in some ways making DLC that's almost crucial to play the game, and you pretty much have to get all DLC to keep playing the game, isn't horrible, but it also isn't the best, because there's plenty of companies that continuously add features where you don't have to buy the DLC. And Paradox is one of the companies that has done it for a very long time, where without the DLC, the game is just worse, and it feels like you have to buy the DLC, and you have to buy every single DLC. I have to say, for like EU4, Crusader Kings 2, Hoi 4, those games are trash compared to the games with DLC. So I think for new players, it makes the the entry level so high, because instead of buying just like this $30, $40, $50 game, you have to buy this game that it could say it's even $5, but then you have to buy like 10 DLCs that are $15. You pretty much are buying a $150 game, and yeah, that's a lot of money. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to put down for one game. You could buy like 2 AAA games with that money, 3 possibly if one's on sale. And I think that's probably the better deal. Especially, it doesn't help people that are getting into strategy games. It's just hard. I think that the DLC model for Paradox is bad. I'll say a lot of people defend it. And a lot of people defend it by saying gamers are spoiled. They want too much. Blah blah blah. I disagree. I think it's actually a valid criticism that you practically need these DLCs, and with the price bump to $30, you're buying over half the game for each DLC. For me, I will say one thing. If you're gonna keep playing the game, and you know you are, buy the Royal Edition, because I bought $70 at the beginning, and I get the DLC, and I like, it doesn't matter to me, because without having to buy the $30, I'm so happy about the DLC. I'm gonna play the game again. I'm probably gonna put another like 50 to 100 hours in the game. I'm thrilled by the edition, but just buying it $30, is it overpriced? The argument's there. I think the argument is valid, and the biggest reason why I'm making this video is because I see a lot of people, a lot of developers, a lot of journalists for Crusader Kings 3 say that it's not a valid argument that the DLC is overpriced. I think there is an argument to be made there, and just saying these people are complaining to complain, gamers, you're spoiled, is just not true. I have to say, if I was not that invested into Paradox games and I was just like an average gamer, because I love Paradox, I'm a huge fan. I pretty much own every single Paradox game and every DLC for every Paradox game. I've probably spent over $1,000 on all the Paradox games. I'm a huge fan. I spend all the money. But if you're not that, I could see the argument to like rather buy a $30 full game than just buy a DLC for $30 onto a game. Like, and then the thing is, it's like, oh yeah, you have to do this once. Well, you gotta do it in a year as well. But the argument is valid because other games do keep on getting the free updates. And you have to say you can't compare to other games. That's the business we're in. Like, you compare games to games. That's the whole idea. Like, there are plenty of games that you need to compare it to because it just makes sense. And I think the reason why it's so prevalent in the Paradox argument or the Paradox games is because usually the DLCs are pretty crucial to the life of the game. Like, I think most of the time, the DLCs are massive improvements that make the game better, and without them, the game starts to feel stale. Like, not even stale, feels bad. Like, the more the game develops, because there's updates and things, but a lot of the updates don't keep in mind without the DLC. All the updates and the balances are like, oh, the DLC's here now, and this does it. So if you don't have the DLC, the game gets bad. If you play Paradox, you probably understand this, and you don't buy the DLC. With all the updates, that free updates, without the DLC, the game becomes worse. But with the DLC, the game becomes better with the free updates and the patches. But a lot of the patches only keep in mind the people that own the DLC and don't keep in mind the people that don't have the DLC. So the whole argument that it's overpriced is valid. Do I think it's overpriced? Nah, like, I don't think it's overpriced, but if I didn't buy the Royal Core Edition, I maybe just buy a $30 game or buy a different game. I don't know if I would sink in $30 for the DLC. And that's because it's a mid DLC to me. Like, I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's like top tier DLC that Paradox has ever made. I don't think it's garbage bad. I think it's right in the middle where it adds a lot of cool things besides the Royal Courtroom. I think that the visuals of the Royal Courtroom is just a gimmick to try to sell more and like, ooh, we have a 3D model now. I don't think it's that impressive, and I honestly don't really care about it. It would have been fine to me if it was just another tab on the side where I could track everything. I didn't need a visual for the throne room. I think that was just something to try to sell more. I really think that it was a gimmick and wasn't that great and wasn't that well done. I think the throne room kind of looks outdated, like a game made like 10 years ago. So if we're just talking about the throne room, maybe overpriced. But I have to say, I think that there is so to conclude this kind of rant video of it being overpriced, there is a valid argument to say that Paradox DLCs are overpriced because you have to get them sometimes a couple times a year. I think that's what people don't understand. It's like sometimes there's like 2 DLCs or 1 DLC a year. It's practically buying a new game every year, but you don't get like a whole game's worth of content. You usually like, it just makes the game better. It doesn't like add so much more content. I think Royal Court will add a lot of content and add more player time, but like, I'm not going to be doubling my playtime. I'm going to add maybe another 100 hours onto my 500. So is that equivalent to the same price of my 500 to 100 hours? Probably not. So argument for overpriced is valid. With buying pre-order or the Royal Edition, not overpriced at all. I think it's actually a good deal because you get more DLCs as well. It's also a smart thing to pre-order it. But also, that's a whole nother conversation if pre-ordering at a lower price is like kind of predatory, because then you make people put money and it could be crap before they even know it, and it could be really good before you know it. That's a whole another game thing that's all over. But I think the argument with the raising to $30 and the game being $50, there is a valid argument that the DLC is over half the price of the game, and that's not talking about a sale, and Crusader Kings 3 will probably be on sale all the time now. So valid argument. I think for people pre-ordered and stuff, it was good with the World Court Edition. I personally wouldn't say it's overpriced, but we're getting in the realm where I think it could be. Like, if the DLC isn't amazing, or if it's not good or okay, it's gonna be overpriced. It's the raise to $30 is, it makes the argument stronger, I guess I should say, that Paradox has a bad DLC thing that makes people spend too much money. I think $10 additional is bad. Also, if you guys watched my one video, I talked about Crusader Kings 3 financial problems and why they might have done this price increase, because they're having troubles financially. That's a whole nother video that I already made. But is it overpriced? No. But you guys saying it is overpriced may have a valid argument, and I think that people saying you don't have a valid argument are just blinded with trying to say Paradox is fine, and there really is a valid argument that it is overpriced. That's my opinion. So if you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and see you in another video.